surprised, but yeah, but it did go from what we thought it probably would end up going for.
Okay, yeah, I put an offer in last week in Cambrian. It was on at 1.3, teeny little place, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And we ended up getting it. It was David Lillo's listing, I know. And he's a good agent. He's just sometimes can be hard to communicate with.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But he got 4 offers. We were the 3rd lowest, but he ended up calling us, and I probably had a more qualified buyer. And we ended up coming up 105,000 and got it we came in at 1.5 and went to 1.605. But
Okay.
again, he only got the 4 offers, and we're starting to see that. I'm starting to see that on our stuff and on the offers that we're submitting. I think the market is, I'm not saying it's slowing down, but I don't think it's the frenzy, and I think it's going to continue through summer.
Yeah, and I had a conversation with an agent in downtown San Jose, and she got the offers, and they had contingencies in them.
Yeah.
And she goes, I haven't seen that for a while. So
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to find out if other people are starting to see some different things on the listing side.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could start off with that. Is everybody there? Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Hello. Everybody good?
Yes. Yep. We hear you.
Okay. I kind of like this to be, okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Sorry. I kind of like this to be a little interactive, or a lot interactive, I should say. So as we go through this, stop me. Let's answer any questions. But Terry and I were just talking, and I thought it might be good to just chat about the market really quick. One thing that Terry and I were sharing is, while the market is still crazy in terms of price, on the offers that we're submitting or the listings that we have, we're starting to see the number of offers reduced. I know I've personally seen it from like December, January, 20 offers down to maybe 10, and now we're kind of seeing between 4 and 6. So I was just curious if anybody wants to chime in to see what they're up against and what they're seeing in the market.
I'll jump in on this. This is Rob LaHue. So yeah, I think I've been working with buyers for several months now. We're kind of seeing the same thing, that it seems like a month ago it was 10 to 20 offers, and now it does seem to be back into single digits, and that coincides not just with offers we're writing, but calling on contingent properties, and things like that to find out where they've come in. It does seem like the numbers are coming down a little bit.
Right.
Hopefully.
Well, and if our market kind of follows past markets, kind of pre-COVID, we should see a slowdown in the summertime, like June to September. That's always been my experience.
Right.
So hopefully those buyers that we haven't gotten into contract, we've got a couple of months ahead of us, we can close them down. Okay. I want to start off with the reason I decided to do this was on my listing side, I've been seeing like what we put out, what we think are really clear instructions, really clear, here's the date, here's the time, here's when you're going to hear from us. And what we're getting is just staggeringly bad. And obviously no agents from this office, but it's a really missed opportunity for agents that maybe aren't putting their packages together complete, because agents right now have the ability to pick and choose who they want to work with. And I mean, as long as they're doing the best thing for their client in terms of price, bringing in a qualified agent that's doing a good job is a big part of that. So I thought I would just run through kind of 5-6 different areas. A couple of them we'll go through pretty quickly, but one is just educating your buyers. And I'm sorry, I don't have any slides. I thought this was in person. So I will take my notes and I will have Kelsey send them out, or however you want to do it. So I apologize. There's not any, I don't have any graphics. I kind of broke it down into educating buyers up front, showing properties, writing the offer, determining the purchase price, communicating with the listing agent, which is huge. And then, you know, the actual process of submitting the offer and how to do it. And I'll go through it pretty quickly, but again, stop me if you have any questions. The first one, when it comes to, you know, educating your buyer, I just think if you're working with one now and you haven't done this or parts of it, maybe you regroup. But when you get a new buyer, and I have been guilty of this as anybody, you know, you're like, you get excited and you're like, hey, let's go look at properties. Let's get you qualified, whatever. There's kind of a few basic things. But what we've started doing over the last few years is really sitting down with them or in a Zoom call or over the phone and just walking them through. And we have kind of a checklist of the things that we want to cover. And so we start with clearly describing the process that they're getting into. We talk about days on market, inventory constraints, how listings are priced, what that means to them in terms of what they should be looking at, the need to move fast in the market, and that we're going to be there to help them, and we're going to get them prepared, but that's a big part of this. What to expect when writing an offer. We send over a purchase agreement, a draft one, and we send over a set of disclosures so that they've seen it in advance. And when you do find a property, you know, we've got that really short time frame, you know, property comes on a, you know, Wednesday, it's sold on a Monday. You don't have to go through the fire drill if you get all this to them in advance. And so we go through all that with them as if they were writing on that property. We talk about proof of funds, the lender pre-approval, getting fully underwritten, the whole thing. When we talk to them about proof of funds, one thing we found out just recently, like we've had clients that have way more cash on hand than what they give us, right? So now we tell them, give us everything. Like, don't give me your, whatever you're going to use, you know, your 200K, you got $1 million in stock. I want that when I present, because that's going to help you as a buyer get in. And sometimes they're hesitant. They're like, oh, you know, just trust me. You know, you want to buy a home or do you not want to buy a home? So give me everything that you've got. It's really going to help you. So, you know, we make all that up front so that they're prepared for the next step. And then, of course, if they have a lender, we immediately call that lender. We reach out to them, learn a little bit about how they work, talk about how we work, make sure they're fully underwritten, and all that. If they don't have a lender, we do a little more reconnaissance with them, and we'll say, okay, tell me a little bit about you. Are you W-2? Are you paying with stock? Is this cash? Or do you own your own business? And then we send them right to the right lender. You know, what you don't want to do is find out you've got what might be a more difficult buyer to get qualified. They can get qualified, but you send them to your direct lender at Wells Fargo, and it's never going to work. So you've just wasted their time and yours. So doing a little upfront with your client to find out what their needs are, you can get them to the right lender, and that's going to help you get them moving forward to writing an offer. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Understanding, you know, your make sure they understand what fully underwritten is, and then start going through some of the contingencies so that when the time comes, you're not having to educate them at the same time you're writing an offer on why you're going to remove the contingencies, why you're having no financing, why you don't have, you know, the inspection contingency, et cetera. Of course, you tell them we'll write it that way, but the chances of it being accepted are minimal, right? And you can say in the last 5 years, I haven't seen anything come across my desk as a listing agent. So let's get you comfortable with this. And what do we need to do? Okay. Because if you wait till a few days before you have to write that offer, it gets really hard. And I know all you know this, but I'm just kind of reiterating it from my own self as well. And then really understand, you know, what they're looking for. Like, is it a schools? Is it commute? Is it a community you know, an area they can walk in? Can you help them expand that? Can you know, drive them down to Almaden, show them some areas, get them into Willow Glen, whatever it may be, get them up to whatever it is. Can you help them to expand a little bit to help them get into the property, but really dial down as, you know, go into all the details of what they really want. And then, if they want a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, and they want great schools and their budget's $1.5 million, you have to educate them. And you've got to get that search set up for them so that they can see, what's happening. When it comes to searches, one thing that I think we were missing, I think other agents are as well, is clear cooperation has been super helpful when it comes to Zillow and Redfin. So let's say you get your search set up, your client set up on an MLS search once you've got everything done. But then you find out they send you stuff off of Redfin, right? Or off of Zillow. And that's just the way that goes. First thing I tell them is, I say, look, be really careful with that, because there's federal guidelines that if you don't have a search set up and you're not in the MLS searching, you will never see homes that are available to show as coming soon, because they don't show up on Zillow or Redfin. And again, you're making yourself the expert. You're getting your clients off of Redfin and Zillow, if possible, and getting them focused on an MLS search. And that's a game changer, right? And sometimes my clients will still do it. And then I'll send them this, and I'll send them something. I'll say, I know you didn't check this, but look, those are coming soon in your neighborhood that we can show. We need to jump on this. So just as much as you can, educate them in that process, be the expert, and try to stay away from those evil websites. When it comes to showing properties, never ever send your buyer out on their own the first time. Schedule a time to show them some properties, even if it's maybe not a property that they would buy. Get out there with them, because you don't know enough about them yet. You don't know how they work as a couple or individuals. You don't know who the power person is in the relationship, because there's always one that's going to drive it, the person that you're going to end up working with. And when you go show properties in person, you're going to find all this out. And you can ask all the questions and learn a little bit more about what it is they like. And then you may find out they have no vision, which is so super common. And they may go, oh, it's not the shiny, penny, and I want the pretty redone home and it's all staged. But maybe you can walk in and go, if we just painted this and redid the floors, did a little bit of cosmetic work, this would be the house we saw, an hour ago, but for a lot less money and built-in equity. And then they're going to want to know, what's that going to cost? And as an agent, you should know on the fly the answer to every single one of those questions within a ballpark. What does it cost to paint inside and out? What does it cost to put in the floors? What does it cost for a really nice kitchen remodel? What does it cost to redo a bathroom basic? You can't give them exact numbers, obviously, but you can give them an idea of what it would take. And I tell you, I've been at open houses where a buyer will ask their agent, what would it take to do this? And they come to me and ask me, what do I think? Right? I see it all the time. Well, all of a sudden, you're not the expert. You're not helping your client, and you're certainly not helping yourself, because you're not getting them into a property, right? They're just spinning their wheels trying to find the perfect thing that in this market, unless they're super qualified or paying cash, they may never get into. So just make sure you can get when you're out showing properties, get them out of the box. And if you can, and they want to do, they want to go on their own, they're super independent, let them do that. But maybe on occasion, attend the open house with them. Like, don't lose touch with them, because what's happening, and I see it all the time, is it's a tough market. And agents are ruthless at these open houses, and they will steal your buyer. And even the most loyal buyer that you think is your new best friend will turn on you in a heartbeat. Okay, so you can't lose touch as you're going through the process. Just stay with them the whole way. What I do with my clients, we have searches set up. Obviously, it comes to us every morning. Before I do anything, I look at my buyer's searches and I see what they're seeing, but more importantly, what they might be missing. So don't assume that your buyer knows what they're looking at, right? It could be that let's say you're a month into this and you're like, I can't believe they're not seeing anything. And then you get in there and you're like, well, what about this? What about this? Maybe they've all sold. And you're like, why did you rule that one out? Well, maybe you need to educate them a little bit more in terms of how to look at a home. And that's just some education. But don't assume that your buyers know what they're doing because they feel confident and they're out looking, because they may be missing stuff. The other thing that we're doing right now that's pretty helpful, and we can talk a little bit more about it later, is because we're starting to see, I think, a little bit of a slowdown. What we're doing now is we're looking for properties that may have missed an offer date. Now, know that not all agents put in offer dates. Sometimes they do it through disclosures IO. It's not always in the MLS. Or if they didn't get the offers they wanted, they'll just take it out. But you start to see these properties that are nice, and you know your client searches because you're on it every day, and you start to see one that maybe should have had an offer Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, now it's Thursday, Friday, it's still available. We just did this for a client, and I called the agent, and he's like, you know, that we didn't get, and Terry had just mentioned this earlier with one of her clients, they didn't get the offer that they thought they were going to get, the seller. And so they turned all the offers down, like all of them. And so then what happens is, then you go and you say, well, what realistically would they now take? And in this particular case, he gave me a number, and it was a very reasonable number for that market, for that neighborhood. And my clients got the home. So just, we got to start looking and getting a little more creative. And of course, the coming soon shows are huge because the only people seeing that are people that have a search set up for that market or happen to be searching. So the whole world doesn't see it. Is that, everybody hear me okay? I'm not sure if I can hear everybody. Let's see.
Yeah, I think it was on mute. Yeah, and
Okay.
with that, Catherine, was like on the it's probably on your next list, that once it will take preemptives.
Correct.
Because sometimes they will take a preemptive even though they have a set date.
That's right. And I think that's a really good point, Terry. And I think we're going to start seeing that more and more. You know, for a while there with the market being so insane, you know, you'd call up and you'd say, will you take a preemptive? And that's such a great point, because I think some of us have gotten to the point where we're like, we don't even ask anymore. But you're right, ask, because I think that's going to come back and be a little more, they'll be more willing to do it as agents start to see the market slow down or the number of offers slow down. Okay, so then it gets to writing the offer. You know, you've done all this prep work, so your clients are, you know, you don't have to go through the fire drill, but immediately contact their lender. Make sure that the lender can be responsive to you on the day of submission or the day before, because you know, usually we wait to the last minute to get to the right price. So make sure that they'll either respond quickly to you when you come up with the price, because we typically, at least on our end, when we do it, we don't, if my clients, you know, approve to 2 million and we're going in at 1.5, we don't show 2 million. We give what the purchase price is. And a lot of the lenders that we work with will let us edit their letters we send them a follow-up email that says we're going to do this, and then it's fine. So we don't lose any time on that, but we stay within their approval and their down payment. Early on in writing the offer, you can get the draft of the offer to your client. Don't worry about the price, just get it to them so they can wrap their head around everything, and then you can put price in. It's going to save you a lot of time. And then when it comes to price, I use a ton of data points, and it takes time to do it right. It's kind of like, you know, preparing for a listing presentation, right? What's that home going to sell for? It's the same, you know, exercise. The first thing is, you know, understand that neighborhood and call every agent that has sold a property in the last 30, 60, 90 days and find out what they had, because you might see the trend that we're seeing now. The agent 90 days ago in December or January got 25 offers, and the last, you know, 3 properties that sold got 4 or 5. It's going to help you tremendously in getting your client into that property. And then of course, call the pendings. Those agents, a lot of them won't want to communicate, but typically what I do is I get super vague. If I get a hard no, I'll say, well, was your client surprised by what they got? And they might say, no, they weren't happy. You know, you might get something and then say, well, can you tell me, did it go over 2 million? Did it go over 500,000? Was it a cash buyer? You know, just if you keep pushing, most agents will eventually give you some information. And again, that's the information that you've got to use. You can't go back 6 months. You can, but in this market, 6 months, you're 10, 15% behind, right? What the market's done.
Cathy,
Yeah,
Cathy,
hello?
can I add my perspective on calling on pendings?
Yes, please.
It used to be that I couldn't get info out of anybody. I have to admit right now, a lot of listing agents seem to be willing to share, and I'm chalking it up to empathy or something.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Much larger percentage seem to be willing to share. So anyway, that's what I'm finding right now. How long that will last, I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'll take advantage of it while I can.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think everybody out there, we all represent buyers and sellers, and I think everybody's got a lot of empathy for what's going on. I think that's a really good point.
Cathy, I have a quick question. As a listing agent, why would you not share, with an agent that unless they're being nasty when they call you, but
Yeah.
other than that?
A couple of reasons. The only reason I wouldn't personally share is I'm in a situation where I'm concerned about the process, the deal going through.
Mhm.
And so I don't want a number out there as to where I ended up. But outside of that, there are just agents. Some of them are a little more old school. I'm old, but I'm not old school. They are like, well, you're not supposed to tell anybody. And you're like, well, read the contract, because actually you can. But it's a mindset of some agents, and it's unfortunate because we should help each other out. But some agents just won't do it. And that's just their mentality. And, everybody's got their deal. But usually for me, it's because I'm uncomfortable with something about the deal.
Yep. Thanks.
But if somebody asked me a few more questions, I would answer that. Like if
I
somebody
always
said-
answer. I always answer when they call me, because like you said, we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to help
Right.
each other.
Right.
I don't see a lot of reasons except for exactly what you said. If there's some reason that, especially if it's contingent, if it's a contingent offer, but there's not too many offers that don't go through these days. And you kind of know you kind of have a pretty good idea how strong it is. Anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And most agents, even if they won't give you the exact number, if you press them a little bit, you can get a pretty good idea of where it went. I mean, really what you're just looking for is trends. Is this, what does my client have to do to get to that right price, and can they afford it? It's a couple of things. Ron, do I want to waste my time writing an offer for something they can't afford because it's gone out of their budget? Or if they can't afford it, more importantly, getting them to that right number to get them into a home, because that's the goal. I have at my previous brokerage, we had come up with a calculation back in, I think it's like 2015, 2016, when the market was still crazy, or similar crazy, I should say. And I've used it ever since. And again, it's just a data point. But what I do is I take the number of offers that I think are going to come in. So at this point, I've called the agent and I've said, okay, how many packets, the drill, right? And so I have an idea. So if there's 20 packets out and I've talked to these other agents, I might say, okay, I think between 8 and 10. I always go on the high side. So I'm going to take the 10 offers. If it's a really hot market, I multiply it times 20%. If it's a hot market, I do 1.5. And if it looks like it's slowing, I do 1%. So I take the number of offers times the percentage times the list price. So on the 20%, or the 1.5, you're going to end up at $300K over asking. So you need to come in at 2.3. Again, it's just a data point, but it's just another way of looking at it that I use when I put all of my stuff together. The other thing that I use is I go to Redfin. I know that sounds weird, but if a property goes on today and then offers are due next Monday, what you'll see if you track it, that let's say it goes on at $2 million and, Redfin might say it's worth 1.9, but as it becomes a hot home, one thing that Redfin does really well is their data analytics. And so let's say they're tracking how many people are following that home. Is it a hot home? How many people are coming back to it? That kind of thing. How many people have shared it? And then you'll see that price go up huge on some homes. You just got to scroll down a little bit on the Redfin page and you'll see it. It's not like Zillow, it's front and center, but it's there. And we track that as well because I know my client's looking at it too. So Again, just another data point. And then at the end of the day, it really comes down to putting all that together and then, sitting down with your client and saying, okay, here's the number, right? And, I used to make mistakes and go, well, I think I could go between 1.4 and 1.5. And of course they gravitate to 1.4 and that's the offer. And I don't do that anymore. I say, look, if you want to buy this home, this is where you need to come in or above to write a really good offer. And then, let's say that number's 2 million. And then the client, and then inevitably the client comes back and they go, well, I think it's worth 1.950. And you go, okay, that's fine. I'll write whatever you want me to write. But let me ask you a question. So when I call you tonight to say you didn't get the property, but the person who did came in at 2,005,000, are you going to be bummed? Are you going to be sad? Are you going to be disappointed that you didn't get that home over $50,000? And inevitably, unless they don't really like the home and they're just throwing a number out, they're going to say, yeah, I would. And then you can take it even further and go, well, would you be mad in this market if you lost it over 75K? And you have this kind of exercise with them, and you'll quickly find out where they're willing to go, and you can get them hopefully to the point where, they can be successful with the purchase. But it's just kind of that exercise of at what point would you not be sad, right? So that's what we do to determine the price. Sorry. The next thing that we look at then, another thing we talk to our clients about is the 8 out of 10 rule. So we say, on a scale of 1 to 10, is this property an 8 for you? And if they say yes, and they're not even sure if they should write an offer, we tell them, look, if you're finding homes that are an 8 out of 10, you need to write an offer, and you need to write a good offer, because they don't come along every day. It's not every day you find a home that meets 80% of your needs. So that's just another kind of data point that we use with our clients when we're trying to get them to put in the right offer, the right purchase price. The next thing is working with and communicating with the listing agent. And that is just everything in this process. And it's really where the rubber hits the road. And I think it's completely overlooked how important the agent to agent relationship is. And I can't tell you the number of times I get calls or abused or yelled at by agents. And I'm thinking, why are you doing that? I literally, if I have a bad experience with an agent, they're in my phone as a bad experience. Like, I list the street and the house and the whole thing. So the next time that phone rings, I know exactly who's on the other end. Now, I would never not work with an agent to the detriment of my clients, but if I have a choice, I would. And every agent that I know would do the same thing. Nobody wants to work with a bad agent. So when you go to talk to that agent for the first time, don't not have read the disclosures, don't not have done the comps, just have everything done, and then give them a call and have your checklist in front of you. And we have one we use, and I'm happy to share. I'm sure everybody's got one, but have the entire checklist every single time you make that call. And we'll go through, some of the things we ask, but, I get the call and they go, okay, so what price is going to get my client the home? Agents aren't going to answer that, because right now nobody knows. I mean, that may change in the next few months. You may be able to get that, question answered like we used to be able to, like, hey, what's the number? But I think you'll find in most cases, people just are not answering that because they don't know. Agents that are honest about it don't. Even agents that do a ton of business don't know, because the market has just gone so crazy. So what we kind of rephrase that a little differently, and we say, outside of price, what can my client do in this offer to make absolutely sure they can secure the home? And then just listen. You'll probably hear a little bit about rent back or other things, but you might hear some nuances that you wouldn't otherwise get. And so we usually lead off with that. And then, we ask, all the pertinent questions like confirming the offer date, seller expectations, which you're probably not going to get an answer to. We ask, how was your open house? Disclosure packets, confirmed offers, expected offers. one question we've been asking, and I think it's going to get more important as the months go on here, is, how did you price this listing? Did you tend to price it on the lower side for what other properties had listed for, or did you price it for what other properties had sold for? So it might give you a gauge of expectations, rent back, time necessary, expectations. If it's a longer rent back, are they expecting it free for the entire time? Are they open to something? I know we're not supposed to go beyond 60 days, but I have seen situations where that happens. And, what are the expectations on something like that? One thing I don't put the agent to work. Like, I've had agents call me and literally ask me to do stuff. Just, don't do that. But you can go into some really basic stuff, like is closing the deal as fast as possible? Is it, wanting the property to go to carrying owners? Is it just the highest price? If it's just the highest price, you got a flipper, it's totally different than a person who's lived there their whole life and raised their family. And when will I hear back? That's super important for your clients, because, we don't ask that question and we submit the offer, then we're following up after they've, shut down the deadline, right? They've gone quiet. They're busy processing their offers. And now all of a sudden you don't know the answer to that. And you're probably not going to get an answer until it's over with. Another thing that we are starting to do is a video. So it's a very, very quick video, and it's, hey, it's Cathy Clock. I just, and we do it to the seller. Just want to let you know, give them your resume. I'm an experienced agent, and I've never written an offer that I haven't closed on. My clients love your home. And oh, by the way, I want to thank your agent for doing such a great job of getting, they were so organized and so well prepared that it will ensure that you get top dollar. So something along those lines, very, very short, 15 seconds. You're complimenting the seller, you're complimenting the agent, and you're giving your resume that you're going to close the deal and a little something about your client. Now, what will happen there is you don't obviously send that to the buyer, you send it to the agent. Well, when the agent gets it, what are they going to do? They're going to love it because you complimented them and all the hard work that they've done on their listing, and they're going to send it over. I can almost guarantee you. So take that 10 seconds, doesn't matter what you look like, just get it done, get it over. And I think it'll be very meaningful. Now, some, brokerages like ours don't allow that, but I will say I have not come across very many offer instructions saying no personal information. So use it while you can, because eventually we won't be able to at all. We also, so just kind of getting into the submission part. So you've talked to the agent, you've gotten all this information. And kind of the last thing is, hey, would you mind if I called you back on the day of or the night before, depending upon when offers are due, and just get kind of a last minute update on, disclosures, et cetera. And if they say yes, ask them what the best way to communicate is, and then ask them up until what time. Because on offer date, listing agents get overwhelmed with texts and calls, and eventually they shut down. And then if you're going to have your lender call, which you should, then you need to find out, don't have them call after you've submitted, because they typically will not even get that message because they're busy working with they might be calling some of the lenders. Yours may not be one of them, but if you can get your lender to call beforehand saying, please expect my client's offer, it's a much better chance that that agent's going to make note of that. Okay. So I just know that when we have an offer date, we turn off our phones because we have to get to work, going through these offers. And when you've got, 5, 10, 15 offers, 20 offers, it's a lot of work, as everybody knows. So you're not there, you're no longer working with agents. The offers are in, you're now looking for the best offer, and everybody else goes by the wayside. A couple of things that have happened to us recently, it just kind of blows my mind, is they'll submit and then I'll get the text, hey, I just submitted, counter me. Like, really? Like, you wrote that bad of an offer, you already want to counter? So I guess what we've started doing to get that message across, which it's an okay message, just, really poorly timed on the delivery, is we put in our summary letter to the lender, to the listing agent. We say, okay, it's the very last statement, and it basically says, my client has written an offer based upon the current market, the inventory, and the current comps. And we've done the best we can with that information. However, if you feel like our offer is of interest, but we have fallen short, we are more than capable of responding to a counter. So basically, you haven't said, here's my offer, now counter me. You've said, in this market, it's difficult, kind of like that empathy thing that we're starting to see with some agents. And we wrote it for the first time last week. And I don't know how much of that had to do with us getting the nod, but we did, and we were not the highest. But I think it's just, again, it's just another thing, it's just not one thing that ever gets your client in. It's a series of things. So something to think about. So that's, kind of dealing with the agents, asking the questions, being respectful of their time on offer date, and knowing that, once that, if it's 1 p.m. on a Monday, you're probably not going to hear from them for a while. I do think it's okay as, maybe a few hours, 4, 5, 6, 7 rolls around, you can start saying, how do we look? But for me, getting those texts, 5 minutes after the offer date, and then wanting, for you to give them information you wouldn't give another agent so that they could write a better offer, it just doesn't look good for the buyer's agent. But I think it is, in my view, and everybody feel free to chime in. It's okay, I think, at some point in that afternoon to say, look, haven't heard anything, just want to make sure, my client really wants the home. How do we look? I have had a little bit of success with that, where the agent will say, you're the lowest. And then I engage with them, and they'll say, if you can come up to this, I'd like to work with you. And then you go back to your clients. But I just, respecting the agent's time, I think, is helpful initially. One thing that we've started, so that's kind of the whole process, from getting them, organized and understanding the market, your buyers, to showing properties, to writing the offers, to the actual offer submission, and, doing a really nice, and one thing I didn't talk about, but I know y'all know this, is just to put, ask the agent, do they want it on email? Do they want a disclosures IO? If they've given any instructions, follow those instructions to a T. Don't leave anything out. If there's no refrigerator, they've indicated there's no refrigerator, don't put a refrigerator in the deal. If there's no washer and dryer, don't include it. Just make sure that you've written a clean offer, because I guarantee you the agent on the other end will notice the agent who has written a good offer, because everybody's coming in with no contingencies for the most part. So you really, it has to be more thoughtful than just the contingency part. And then, when you do send that off, just make sure that it's a summary, so the agent doesn't have to spend a bunch of time. I get stuff all the time. It's just like, here's my offer, and there's nothing there. There's no summary. Doesn't mean it's not a great offer and I won't work with them. But if I've got another agent that did do that and they're equal, I'm gonna probably reach out to that agent. So professionalism on every inch of it is what's going to get your client there. Any questions on all that? Any thoughts, input?
So I always ask listing agents when we write the offer, if they are open to communication, because they do get busy after the offer due time. So I do ask them, are you open to communication? Can I text you? Can I phone you? And then I behave based on their preference.
Yeah, that's really good input. Yeah, exactly. Whatever it is that they are comfortable, their way of communicating, that's great. That's a great way to do it. Anybody have any other tricks of the trade they want to share with the group? Okay, well then I'll share a few. If you get to the point where your clients are stuck, so you've written a bunch of offers, it's not working out. You can't get it to the next step. What we've started doing is we step back and we relook at the whole package again. We go back and look at what they're looking at. We go back to the lender, especially if it was their lender initially. We go back to the lender and say, look, what can we do? We're missing out by 50, 60, 100K. And we just try to get creative, try to look at different types of financing, like what is it going to take to get this buyer who really wants to be in contract. And I'm not saying push clients into something they can't afford, but relook at the package. So we had a client, we just got him into contract a couple of weeks ago, and we've been working with them for like 3 months. And they kept wanting to write offers in this very specific range. And, we tried to get them to other areas and they just wouldn't go. And they were hell bent on some certain areas at a certain price range. And it wasn't going to happen. And they were getting priced out of the market. So it was their lender that they had had a relationship with. And so we called them and asked some specific questions like, what's the interest rate? Because interest rates have gone up. Like, is it still competitive? So we went back to them and just said, where are they? What's their payment? And then we found out the lender wasn't very responsive to us. And then the buyer was kind of annoyed. And so then I thought, well, I said, I tell you what, Stephen, just call him directly. And I want to know what the interest rate is because he's dodging this. And I have a feeling there's maybe something there. So it turned out their interest rate for a 30-year fix had gone up to 4.25. And so that's a big jump from where they were originally when they had first gotten approved. So I took them to one of our preferred lenders at Golden One Credit Union, and she got them fully underwritten in 3 days at 3.25. Now, 3.25 to 4.25 interest rate is a game changer. It gave them about $100,000 in purchasing power that they didn't have. And we were able to get them into a property because they were able to be a little bit bigger fish in a smaller pond. So just if you're getting stuck, go back, relook, see what they're looking at, and or drive them around, right? And try to get them into other areas because the goal, they want to be in, if they've been hanging in there for this long, they want to buy a home, but you're the one that has to guide them into the different channels and different lenders, different areas to get them to where they need to be. So let's see. And I guess kind of my last thing is, and this, I do this a lot because I'm a pretty conservative person by nature, but don't be afraid to go out on a limb with your advice. And I find myself over the years, I've really pulled back on that. And as you spend more time in your career, it gets easier, but it's scary telling your clients, what it's going to take to buy a home. And I think it's okay. I mean, I'm not saying, push your clients into something they can't afford, but understanding what they can afford and then educating them on what they need to do to get to that home that they want, and really having a really honest conversation about it. I think you might find that your clients, if they're, stuck on a number, they won't go up and they're getting beat out, which is we've seen over the last 6 months. It's just been incredible. Maybe they're willing to do a little bit more. Maybe they're willing to sell some stock or whatever it takes. But sometimes it just takes that really honest conversation where you push them a little bit in the right direction to get them into a home. So the advice factor is huge in what we do. And I think sometimes we tend to want to not be as aggressive as maybe we should be in the right way. So.
Yeah, explaining to them that, especially in that market, when our market's going up so quickly, that they're either chasing the market or they're making the market. So when they lose out on it, right now that's the new price point.
Right. That's
right?
your
So
new comp.
Right. So like back to their pain, like if you lost it by 50,000, 60,000, well, that's what the next one's going to be.
That's exactly right, Terry. That's your new comp, and the new comp might not be as nice a home, right? If that new comp is 2 million, it might no longer be a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. It might be a 3-bedroom, 2 bath. So you've not only, you're not only spending the same amount of money or more, but you might not get as much house. So yes, it's a really good point. All right. Any other questions or anything? I think I'll put this together if anybody wants it. Chelsea, I'll have it, just notes and our checklist that we have for when we first working with a buyer and questions we ask agents and that kind of thing. So you've got it.
No, this is all really great, Catherine. I just really appreciate you taking your time to share your knowledge and skills with all of us, because no matter how long we've been in this business, it's always changing, and we always can learn from what other people have to say.
Always, always, always. Yeah. Well, thanks, Terry.
Yes,
All right.
Andy, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Rob. Thank you.
Catherine,
Thank you.
I have a question. It's Shirley.
Hi, Shirley.
Just got in the car. Anyway, so you've got a buyer who is like just, he's just shy. Have you ever done like pay for the closing costs and whatnot, just to give them that little extra help?
Yeah. So shot. Yes, I have. Sure. I don't ever give up. I gave up my commission once, like a Redfin kind of thing years ago. And I just felt so gross and dirty. I never did it again, but I will absolutely help a client out. And I've done it. Like I have thrown money at deals. And usually it's a situation where the people are nice, they've been loyal to you, you're loyal to them. It's a long-term situation, right? And so, yeah, I do. I mean, we had one, gosh, I don't know, it was like a year ago, March. Of course, the market was crazy then too. And the agent started negotiating with me. And so we were way over where my client wanted to be. And I just started negotiating with her. And I'm like, all right, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. And I called my client back and I go, you don't have to do any of it, but I just negotiated a deal on your behalf. And it's yours if you want it, but I'm willing to kick in. I think I kicked in like $3,500 and paid for their home warranty or whatever. So yeah, for sure. I mean, if let's just put it this way, if somebody referred a buyer to you and you had to give somebody 25%, you work just as hard. Are you willing to lose a deal over that?
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I wouldn't make a practice out of it, but
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, because don't you like it's like 11 o'clock at night and you're negotiating, you're like, shoot, I'll just give up my commission and I'll just buy a home, right?
Yeah,
So,
and then you can move on to the next one. Yeah.
whatever it takes.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to share, like, I have a buyer who's buying and they already went so way above to get the house. But then looks like the other offer, which was in the play, that agent offered to pay the listing agent for the staging cost. And then the listing agent asked me, if you want your offer accepted, why don't you ask your buyer to pay for that? I was like, my buyer has already gone up so much and paid for that. How can I go and ask him to pay for your staging cost? If you're giving the house to him, I'll pay for your staging cost if that is which will break the deal. I don't want that to happen to them.
I think that's a very personal approach, how each agent would do it. For me, if that is kind of like the situation I just shared with Shirley, staging runs between 2,500 and 5,000. And I don't know what the price point was, but I would probably say, okay, I'll do that, but are you going to accept my offer, right? Is this an agent that is just going to push and push and push and push to get whatever they want, right? But I would say, look, if you're willing to sign off, I'll pay for it. I personally would never go back to a client and say you need to pay for staging. Although I guess, what I would do, you kind of need to tell them that was the question. But what I would do is I would say, look, this was the question proposed to me to share with you. I have agreed to do it on your behalf because I don't think it's appropriate to ask a buyer to pay for staging. But I think everybody on this, on this Zoom call probably has a different view of that.
I of course ensured that she's taking my buyer's offer, and
Mm-hmm.
then I agreed to that. But I mean, I felt so bad that I have to go and ask the buyer to pay for staging cost. I
Did-
didn't feel that was a good thing to
Yeah,
even
did
ask.
they do it?
No, I'm paying for it.
You are?
I never even asked the buyers. I
Yeah,
felt it was
yeah.
absolutely like, unnecessary and inappropriate.
That's when you put that agent's name in your phone.
Because with that agent basically was asking, will you pay for my staging? But
Right.
but they prosed it like, well, if your buyer pays for my staging,
Right.
right? That's
Exactly.
basically what they're, yeah, that I put them in that list too.
What goes around comes around. That's all I'm gonna say. All right. Well, thanks everybody for dialing in. I appreciate it. Everybody, good luck out there, and hopefully the market is slowing and we can get all of our buyers into contract.
Thank you.